First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to participate in this webinar. We've had it up for a few years now and had some very good feedback. One of the things that I can say about it, and I think probably most of you would agree, is that Howard does relay a lot of very good information, but there's a large portion of it that's very technical. And so we usually see people that are interested in the topic and want to absorb as much of it as possible. They'll actually come back and review or come back and view the webinar multiple times over a duration. So feel free to sign up again to view the webinar if there's additional information that you want to try to drill down to understand better. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason Spangler. I'm the product manager here at Wagner Meters for flooring, responsible for both the Rapid RH and our full line of wood hand meters for testing wood subfloor and finished wood products. We are going to do a Q&A. If there are questions that you have, please do send them in via email. I know that there is, sometimes it's worse than others, but there is a lag sometimes in the emails being sent or this webinar being over. Any of the emails that do come in after we are off the air, I will definitely respond to them personally. Or if you come up with any additional questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. My phone number is 800-634-9961 and it's extension 235. So with that, without any further ado, we'll get into the questions. I have one here. It says, it's from Kenny. I have a room of 422 square feet with one outside wall. Do I still need to use 3 probes? Well, if we're looking at it from an absolute standpoint and an ASTM standpoint, it's stated 3 for the first 1,000 square feet. And so the 422 comes in under 1,000. So you're still looking at needing to do 3 tests. Now, that's the absolute portion of it. And the next part that I'm going to say, I'm not condoning, but I will say that there are probably people out there that aren't doing 3 for a room that size. But technically, per ASTM, to say that you have followed it by the letter of the law, you would need to do 3 tests for that size of a room. Another question that we get quite a bit revolves around determining thickness of slabs. So first, we'll start with the easy one, or what I think is probably the easier one, is the elevated slabs that are in pan decking. A lot of times, if you walk around the slabs, you're going to have some kind of penetrations coming through the slabs where there's usually, a little bit of area around, say, the pipe that you can actually see what the profile of the metal looks like, what the thickness of the concrete is, what the high versus the low thickness is. So I usually tell people that, especially if you're not used to trying to figure out thickness of the concrete, you'd be surprised at how often you can if you just go in there and really look at the different aspects of the site to determine what that thickness is. When you look at a slab on grade, again, if you're talking rehab, there's a lot of times where they're altering or moving plumbing for adding a bathroom or moving a bathroom. You could have trenches in the concrete where you can actually see before they backfill or put new concrete in there. You figure out what the thickness is there. Again, it's not going to be consistent usually from everywhere. It's not going to be perfect measurements, but you've been able to get some kind of baseline of what the slab should be so that you can base your thickness on that. There are people that are going through actually and doing smaller diameter drill bits and drilling holes all the way through in a couple of spots. You don't want to turn the slab into Swiss cheese, but you want a couple of spots at, say, opposite ends of the building to be able to make some kind of comparative measurement to make sure that you have as good of information as possible. Construction documents, site supervisors, things of that nature can also help you with that. Another question we get quite often revolves around, again, pan decking and where do you drill, or how do you calculate the depth of the hole? Do you calculate it based on the shallow portion and go 40% of that? Do you base it on the thickest section and go 40% of that? So the first thing, I'll back up. If you have a slab that's poured in pan decking, there's a lot of times they call it vented pan decking. Well, I get the question a lot that says, does that mean that it's drying from one side or two sides? The venting is not enough to classify it drying from two sides, so you're only drying from one side, which means that your calculation is based on a 40% of whatever the thickness is. Now, back to the original part, which was, how do you figure out what the thickness is? The ASTM committee, or the ASTM standard F2170, is completely silent on this specific topic. There were some people out there that were looking at doing some averages. It doesn't look like that's something that people are going to continue doing. And so our recommendation has always been, and continues to be until something changes, that we want you to do the best you can to identify where the deepest section of the pan is, and then calculate 40% of that and drill into that deepest section. So the next question I get is, how do I figure that out? A lot of times I'll have people that will take, again, smaller diameter drill bits. They may try to position where they're at within that trough to try to get the center of it. I have sometimes where people will find that high spot and then measure accordingly, because you can usually figure out what the center to center is on the flutes of the pan decking. On the other side, I have people that will go to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and they actually sell a fairly inexpensive, under $100 usually, metal detector that looks a lot like a wood stud finder for the walls, and it's got a strong enough signal that it will actually penetrate through the concrete usually and pick up the high portion of the pan decking, but it's not so strong that it picks up the deep section. So in essence, you can scan across the concrete, pick up where the high spot of the metal's at, scan across further, pick up the other high spot, and now you have center to center, and you can drill right in the middle of it and calculate your 40% based on that thickest area. Have another question from Kenny. It says, can I leave the plastic cap on instead of the metal cap for future checking, say in about 1 year? I will be installing carpet tile with glue tabs. Honestly, Kenny, it's going to be something where after that thing's been in there for a year, it's not, I'm not going to 100% guarantee that, because I don't know what's happened to that sensor, whether it's going to A, read, or B, whether it's going to read quote unquote accurately. So anytime you have something like that, it's probably going to be better off that if you think you need to come back and recheck it, you're probably better off just drilling a new sensor at that time and putting it in there. The metal is really intended to allow people to cover these things up, document where they were placed, and then be able to find them after the fact in case there's any kind of dispute from a flooring failure, so that you can take your written documentation that you have of your pre-installation moisture tests and actually compare it with the job that you're talking about. Again, that metal detector comes in very, very useful in that situation, because if you have a floor that's covered up and those metal discs are in there, you can take your piece of paper that you've drawn kind of an X marks the spot of where those tests were located, go to that general area on that floor once it's been installed upon, and use that metal detector to pick up where that metal disc is at. So specifically to your question, it wouldn't be something where I rely upon those answers after the thing being installed for a year, not knowing what the conditions are like. All right, well, it looks like I don't have any other questions. So again, my name is Jason Spangler. Phone number is 800-634-9961. It's extension 235. And if there's anything that we can do for you in the future, or if there's any other questions that you have after this webinar, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thanks, and have a great day.